Hey there, it's Christian, and today's review is for this. It is Dark Rituals Malleus Maleficarum. This is a box full of all that is dark and medieval and horrible, basically. This Dark Rituals Malleus Maleficarum, which of course is named after the book that was the handbook, if you like, of how to hunt witches back in the day, the Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, which is all very appropriate because in this 1vsAll game, one player is going to be playing as the Witch Master, looking after a horde of horrible creatures, things like skeletons and zombies and whacking great demons, to name a few. And then the other player or players will be the rather evil looking heroes, if you ask me. And they're going to be trying to defeat the witch or the witches who are under the control of the witch player. But we're going to go through and talk about the components and the presentation of the game. We're going to talk about, of course, most importantly, that gameplay experience, and then we're also going to look at, well, who is this for? Now, I'm not going to do any rules. There's other videos for that. This is pure review, so that you can decide whether this is something you want to get hold of a copy. So, onto the components. Well, this game is quite frankly gorgeous. The art is brilliant throughout. There's not a bad piece, and there are copious amounts of it. And they all serve to bring to life this very grim, obviously smelly, perpetually grey world where no sunlight ever shines. It's a bit like my beloved Britain, really, but it's okay because we have tea. But this is a Britain that's packed with all sorts of disgusting, gribbly, horrible monsters, like some of the fellows that you'll be seeing in the footage now. There's teeth on top of teeth, tentacles and distended limbs and gaping maws and spines and spikes and claws and slimy skin and exploding things and so on and so forth. You get the idea. The miniatures are the real stars of the show here, though. Because they are spectacular. They are encased in good quality plastic trays, although it is the type that they have to clip into, so painters beware. But these are marvellous to play with. I mean, they utterly evoke the art that we see throughout the book and on box and on all the rest. And they are a tactile joy to behold. And playing with them out on the board, which is a cool collection of tiles with all of the aforementioned solely grey, grim setting, I might add. But it's lit up with torches for, little hovels and dilapidated buildings that barely sort of stand up against this onslaught of dark forces. And the board is just peppered with interesting little locations. You've got shrines and a church, and there's dark watery ponds and all this sort of thing. It all looks lovely set out. Now, if there is any drawback to any of the components, the hero player cards and the witch cards, they're a little bit on the thin side. It would have been really nice to have sort of proper card stock. And the hero ones especially, if you flip them over, they're just white on the back. I mean, they didn't print anything on it. They didn't even colour it black, which is the general colour tone of most things. Which is a bit of a shame because it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb that there's something that's just not as nice as the rest of it. But certainly in terms of looking at it, it all looks beautiful because of, as I said, this rather amazing art. The counters that you get in the game, they're all thick and lovely, covered in great art. And you've got these gems in the Kickstarter version for your stamina tracking, which is really cool. I don't know if that's going to be in any sort of retail release, but they make it very nice and tactile to do all your stamina stuff. However, the dice are a bit unclear, which is a real shame because they're actually nice quality dice. They're heavy and well etched and all the rest. But there's only 3 results. There's a blank and a 1 and a 2. And they printed the 2 really close together. So it looks from a distance, it's quite hard to tell the difference sitting across the table if someone's rolling the dice. It's just annoying because it's such a small oversight. The colours of the dice themselves aren't great either. They could have chosen cooler colours to go with the general colour scheme. But the rulebook itself, that's okay. It's a bit wordy, but it's not a massively complex game, so it gets away with it. But there's no index, which I still cannot fathom, that there are people making board games these days without an index in. Stop it. The components are not perfect, but they are very good. These are minor things I'm picking up on, because overall it is a beautiful game that is beautifully put together. And there's a lot of this game, with all the expansions which introduce new witches and sort of their attendant monsters, as well as you've got 2 big box expansions, they've got new heroes and new map tiles and other witches and demons and big stuff. The Kickstarter box, that is full of the stretch goals. I mean, that's huge. And I would really encourage you, if you're going to get this game, you kind of need to get it with those Kickstarter stretch goals, because there's so much stuff in it. The thing that adds is lots more heroes, and they're really cool heroes, and also some really interesting demons, but just some other really fascinating monsters to work into your game. Although that is one of the difficulties, which I'll come to in a moment. Don't do what I did though when you get your English copy and then think that you've got German titles on a bunch of your cards. This is the designer's idea of making some fluffy lore stuff, as apparently it's the witch's language of Nemosian. And on closer inspection, I probably should have worked out actually that it wasn't German, with names of abilities like Consumo Young for an ability of one witch where she eats her spider babies. Yes, that's what I said. It's quite a dark setting. But too late, because I'd already made a fool of myself on the forums asking if everyone else had the same German-looking misprint on their English cards as me. Okay, Christian, so it all looks gorgeous, but how does it actually play? This game has a very simple flow to it. A hero activates and takes 1 or 2 actions, and then the witch player picks a character of theirs and takes 1 or 2 actions. And you keep going back and forth until you run out of stamina for the turn, or you both pass. And then it's a new round, and you keep going with that until a victory condition's met. I mean, it really is that simple. And actually, because it's that simple, it leads to a delicious dichotomy of kind of knowing a sort of tactical freedom, because you're free to pick whichever of the miniatures are on your side to activate, you know, whether that's one of the heroes, and you could keep using the same hero for a number of turns until they've used up their stamina, or the Witchmaster could keep using the same monster, or a whole bunch of whatever. You've got this tactical freedom, but it's also kind of combined with the sense of, I can actually only activate 1 mini before my opponent gets to go again. And it's this sort of restricted freedom that makes every activation really important. And make no mistake about it, this is a tactically demanding game, as are most good 1vsAll games. It's scenario driven. So you're going to have different victory conditions for each mission that you play. And if you just go for a brain dead attack, if you're playing against anybody who's got any sort of real tactical nous, they are very likely going to beat you. Now, there is some randomness because there's dice. There's a little bit of card play on both sides as well. But this is a game that absolutely will reward solid tactical play. And you need to bear that in mind when you're coming to decide if this game might be for you. I've already seen some complaints about this being it's just a rolling dice fest. There's not enough variety of gameplay or meaningful decisions to make. You know, it's all, well, my turn is move and attack. Well, my turn is move and attack. But this is what it will be if you both don't make, sound tactical plans. That you don't attempt to leverage all the abilities of the various characters and units at your disposal. And you don't respond to the opportunities that kind of organically present themselves in a game like this. Because there really isn't a staggering variety in terms of the stats between these different monsters. We're talking numbers generally between 1 and 4 on most of these things. But what does really differentiate the large number of monsters, say for instance in the game, is that, and this is really important, is it's their potentially game affecting, game changing special abilities. Like, that's the really unique thing, more or less, about all of these creatures. This isn't a game of mega high powered units every turn slinging massively OP feeling abilities at each other, but it feels balanced because they're all OP. No, this is a game that's a gritty, desperate struggle. One side will prevail by managing to get off a handful of their more powerful abilities at the right moment in the game. This is a game where you are basically never going to use all of the abilities and all of the things that are available to your units every game, in any game actually. And that's partly what creates that sort of sense of, I need to play this again feel, because, well, I want to do all of these cool different abilities with these different units. I want to see them in action. I want to pull that off against whatever, because those are the things that are really creating the cool moments in this game. Some of these moments will come through mechanics like alchemy, which is a very cool mechanic in which, as the hero players, you can go around and collect ingredients and then use those to create access to new abilities for your character. And these abilities are tiered from levels 1 through 4. And so, the healer's level 1 heal spell is very simple, heal himself 1 wound or something. The level 4 spell is, wipe out a plague that the witches have cast that's draining all the heroes of their stamina. Or the tank character, who can use his ingredients to create abilities where he can absorb the damage of other people in his space instead of them getting wounded, or that he can use it to push all of the opposing gribbly monsters out of the area that he's in and thus defend himself and his party. I think this system does a really cool job of differentiating each hero from each other and cementing the hero's class-related playstyle. Now listen, you may only get to use these alchemy abilities once or twice in a character in a game, or even not at all. But that's it. If you do get to use them, they're the kind of moment that can swing a scenario in your favour. There are many meaningful decisions to be made every time it's your activation, and even sometimes when it's not, because you have reaction type abilities. For instance, there was a time my son spotted an opportunity to summon a sort of hanged woman ghost type creature thing into a space with 3 of my 4 heroes in it. And she's got this ability called Suffocate that drains my precious stamina, my action points. Now, on my turn, I of course can only activate 1 hero. So do I 1, get 1 hero the hell out of there? Do I 2, attempt to kill the ghost, even though she's actually tough as nails and it's going to be really difficult to take her down? Or 3, do I use an alchemical spell that one of my characters has to restore the stamina after I've lost it and sort of eke back some of those action points? Or any one of a whole other number of different options. And of course, for me, well, I chose to go for glory, try and get the kill on it. It didn't happen, and he proceeded to drain a massive 12 stamina in 1 round. That's completely hamstringing my heroes for the rest of that round. A game-changing moment, and a memorable moment for both of us playing together. Another little plus point for me is the games are actually quite quick. For games like this, they can often go on quite a long time, but most of the scenarios that I've played have really taken about an hour to an hour and a half. There is a bit of setup and set down time because there's a lot of cool bits to the game. I would say that it's pretty realistic to get 2 scenarios of this in of an evening when you both know the rules well. Okay, so what's not good here then? Well, whilst Darkgate Games have got a good system here with lots of cool variety, there are some issues with the game's production and organisation around the rules, most especially. I mean, for instance, apart from the fact that it took 3 months after delivery of their game to actually furnish all the Kickstarter backers with the rest of the rules, the big area that's a problem is combining the game's expansion content when you're putting it all together for your individual scenarios. For instance, each time you play as the Witchmaster, you'll have a witchcraft deck from where you will draw the creature cards that you can play over and above your normal sort of basic minions, plus cool one-off powers and abilities that you'll get access to as part of the fun card play aspect. The difficulty is, of course, that if you just pack all of the expansion content cards into your witchcraft deck, you're going to get this whacking great deck that's utterly untuned, and will have loads more creature cards in than the sort of tuned deck of the core box. After waiting, as I said, months for the rules on how do we balance using the new expansion stuff, all DG gave us was basically, house rule it, guys. You need to make sure that things are balanced. And I've got to say, I mean, it would be naff in a narrative-rich game that cares less about balance to essentially say to your backers, you've got all this cool stuff, we know, but just house rule it. Make sure it's balanced when you come to play. But this is a game that really does care about balance. It's a tight, taut, tactical affair. And so when a game turns on fine margins, it's a really poor move by them that after such a long wait, I was so disappointed in them for. Now, this doesn't apply to the core set. It doesn't apply, I don't think, to the big box expansions. If you play them in a contained manner, they're sort of self-contained scenarios and so on. If you play what's in the box, it's balanced. But if you're trying to work in some of the smaller expansions, like the expansion witches and their attendant minions, or the myriad stretch goal stuff, it's a real frustration. And maybe it's something that we can, encourage DG to do still, because we really do need better rules for combining all of this great content, because there's so much of it that you can get your hands on. DG, come on, your game is really good. You need to provide some way of having a rule set for balancing using all of these great expansions. Now, there is a solo mode, but you will need the Kickstarter stretch goals box to be able to play it, because it needs some components from there. Guys, this isn't a game that they made wanting to make it a soloable game. It's a true 1vsAll tactical experience. They added it as a right down the list stretch goal. Don't expect much out of it, but it is there. So, who's it for then? You need people who are quite evenly matched. If you've got one player or one side who's going to really think tactically and apply an overarching strategy and go for it, like in these games always, they're most usually going to beat the other player. So you do need to be aware of that. This is a game that shines at 2 and 3 players. Again, like most 1vsAll. At 4 or 5 players, although I haven't played it at that amount, because I just wouldn't, it will result in way too much downtime for the heroes. But 2 players is great, even if tracking the 4 characters as the hero player isn't the easiest. 3, I think, is the dream. 3 is really nice. The 2 players with the hero characters can then be working together and doing that kind of teamwork thing, pitching themselves against the Witchmaster and all his legions, which always feels fun to play, looking after all these grimly horrible monsters and going after these still rather evil looking heroes. So there it is. It's Dark Rituals, Malleus Maleficarum. It is a really good game with tight tactical gameplay, gorgeous minis. The artwork is wonderful. It evokes a real sense of the setting brilliantly, I would say. There's just a bit of issue really around some of the expandable content if you're wanting to work it all in together. And I think that can probably still get sorted out in future. Maybe something simple like a points value system. If you like 1vsAll games, if you like dark, grim, gritty fantasy settings, and you love minis, man, this is a very solid game to add to your collection, and I will wholeheartedly recommend it from that point of view. If you liked the video, please do click a like, it really helps. And if you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing. Go on, smash that subscribe button, and then of course you'll get the updates when all the new reviews and little bits and pieces come out. Until next time, keep enjoying your gaming.